Hello everyone and welcome back to another PHP tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to talk about the classes. In order to explain things, I will write a little bit of code first and then we will explain based on that. So let's write the keyword class and give this a name. Let's say you want to represent people, so you want to define a person. Okay, so you open a curly bracket and you close it, and then you write the keyword public and then the name. So here this is going to be first name semicolon and public $sign last name. There you go, semicolon. Okay, so now we will write $sign x equal new person. Okay, and we will say x arrow first name equal John and x arrow last name equal, the capital small is important to keep track of, equal Smith. There you go. And finally echo OK. So this will only display the keyword OK, but there are things happening. So let's refresh, make sure OK appears. So let's debug, and because of debugging you will understand what's happening and we can explain things. Okay, so listen for Xdebug. So before I start the debugging process, basically this is what you call a class. A class is a representation or a definition of your own data type, let's say, and basically it represents an entity, a logical entity in your program. So in this example you are defining what a person is to the computer. You are telling the computer that a person consists of a first name variable and a last name. Okay, so a person has a first name and a last name. Okay, this is the definition of the class. Now in this part here you are saying X is a new person. So X here represents a person, so it should have a first name and last name. Okay, so this is the let's say like the template or the blueprint of what a person is, and here you are creating an actual person, if that makes sense. Here is the definition. Here is what they call the object. This is the class, and this is an object of this type of a class. Okay, and after we create the object, we fill the first name, we fill the last name. Okay, so let's see what's happening here. Let us refresh, and the breakpoint is triggered. Okay, so I press F10. Where is it? Come on. Oopsie. Let us refresh. Okay, now it's triggered. I'm not sure why, but whatever. So you can see here X is of type person, and it consists of first name and last name. You can see it here in the watch window. So X is an object. It's not an integer, not a float, not a string. It's an object of type person, the type that we define, and it consists of first name and last name. So this is an actual object. Now when I say this is an actual object, it means that the computer assigned the resources so that you could store values into them, and these resources are in one unit, and that unit is identified by X. Okay, so I am gonna fill the first name here. You can see John is being placed in first name, and Smith is being placed in the last name field. Okay, very straightforward, and then the values get displayed. Okay, so now we defined a class, we created an object, and we filled the values. Now we can actually display the values here. So I'm gonna display X arrow last name. Okay, so I am displaying the last name. Refresh, we have Smith. I cannot display X alone. I have to tell the computer which field to display. Okay, so let's refresh. Fatal error, and object of a class person could not be converted to string. So object, in this case, it's the variable X that is an object of type person. This is the type of the class, right? Cannot be converted to string. Echo could only display strings. This is an object. This is not a string. It has variables, in this case, first name and last name, that we filled with strings. So we could only access these variables and fill them with strings in order for things to work with echo. We have to access the variables themselves, and we do that by adding an arrow and writing the name of the variable. So first name, capital small is important, case sensitive. We save this, and now we refresh. This is John. Okay, so far so good. Now let's improve this a little bit. So these two variables are called properties. Okay, these are the properties, and now I'm gonna add a function. Now functions inside the class are called in many cases methods. So I'm gonna add a function here. I will call it print. Okay. Sorry, I forgot the keyword function, as you can see. Shame on me. So here, what are we gonna do? We're gonna say echo. I will say this means I want the object that is calling the print function to access the first name. Then put a space, dot, and this arrow last name. Then put a new line. Okay, so I am going to change this to okay, and I'm gonna say X arrow print. Okay, so have a look at this. So we created a function, right? We created a function inside the class. The function inside the class is called a method. Now this one doesn't take any parameter. It could take parameters, however we doesn't need in this case. So what did we do? We said echo. Now you find this keyword. This keyword means I want the object calling this method. I want to get a variable or a field from the object that is calling this method, right? In other words, you can see here X arrow print. So this in this case represent X. When this code runs, when the code of print runs, the keyword this represents X, right? Because a print was called by X, so this represents the value of X. So it will display the first name and the last name. So let's save this. Let us refresh, and you get John Smith. Okay, So this is a very straightforward example. Let us make things a little bit more complicated. So I'm gonna say function I think construct actually set names first, last. There you go. So I'm gonna say this arrow first name equals first, and this arrow last name equals last. Okay, so this method will take two parameters, first and last, and save them into first name and last name so that I don't have to fill two fields. So check this out. I'm gonna say x arrow set name John Smith. Okay, so instead of filling the fields one by one, I call one function and it will do the job for me. Okay, I get the same result. I will do debugging in a second. But let's make things now interesting. Since we have these two functions or methods in the class, they will make my life a little bit easier. So I'm gonna say y equal new person, and I'm gonna say y equal arrow set name Michael Jackson. Okay, and I want to print the names. Okay, so here I have a person called in the variable x called John Smith. I call him John Smith, and I print the result. And another person, Michael Jackson, and I print the result. Okay, so now let's go and refresh. You can see John Smith and Michael Jackson. So let us debug and see what is happening, right? So listen for Xdebug here, and let us refresh. Okay, so we are gonna need x and we are gonna need y. Okay, so I press F10. So we have x, as you can see, it has a first name and last name. So let's see what setName does. So in setNames, we receive the value first and last, as you can see. And this is still doesn't have value. So I'll press F10. Okay, and F10. And this one finished. So what do you see here? X now has value John Smith. Very straightforward. And now X is going to call what? It's going to call the print method. So let's go F11. So you see that this have the values John Smith. Okay? Why? Because X is calling the print method. So X is passed into the print method right away. No need to be written here as a parameter with the name this, if that makes sense, right? And now we will get the first name and print it with the last name to the end user. Okay, so this one's finished. So now we create a new object, in this case y. It's of type person, as you can see here. Let's have a look. And again, we will call the set name, and this is the first name, this is the last name. There you go. And when we return, you find that y now has these values, right? Why? Because in set name, when we called set name by y is passed into this function as the name this. Okay, so whenever you put value here, it will go back to y. Okay, again, the object calling the function is already passed to that function under the name this. Okay, so now we are going to call a print. So y will be passed to print, okay, as the name this. So if 11, you can see this here is what? Michael Jackson. Okay, very straightforward, and so on. All right, so it's very easy, very straightforward, not very complicated. You define the properties that represents the logical entity in your program, right? And you write the methods or functions that work on them, okay? This will make your program easier to understand to other. The point of object-oriented, according to my understanding, is to make your program easier to understand first, and second, make it possible to share your code with other programmers. Okay, um, yeah, so I think that will be all for today. I don't want to go too deep into classes. um, I think this will be enough for today, and we will have a deeper look at classes in the next video. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Bye bye.